Who dat to the Who Dat Nation? Welcome to the Dome Patrol podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and welcome to the Week 17 preview of the Saints versus the Las Vegas Raiders, which will take place this Sunday, December the 29th in the Caesars Superdome at 12 noon. This is the penultimate game of the season. Yes, only 2 games left in this historic season of the New Orleans Saints, and not historic in a good way. The New Orleans Saints, who are currently 5-10 on the season, will return home to the Superdome and look to bounce back after a disappointing, just to put it kindly, disappointing performance in Green Bay on Monday night when the Saints were defeated 34-0. For the whole world can see, this Sunday's matchup against the Raiders will be the Saints' final home game of the NFL season, of this NFL season, I should say. And it's really bittersweet, because I know a lot of people who are selling their tickets to this game. This is not going to be a raucous home crowd for the Saints game this Sunday, and understandably so. Who wants, especially after that Monday night game, who wants to watch that? You know, who wants to go brave all that traffic and the parking and the hustle and bustle of getting into the dome and getting to your seat, paying $20 for Coca-Cola and all this here to see your team underachieve? It's not a good feeling, and the Saints are not in a good position right now. You know, to kind of put it in layman's terms, this has been a wash of an NFL season. Losing the coach, quarterback ain't worth a dime, injuries, and a partridge in the pear tree. It was just a dumpster fire of an NFL season. The Saints this Sunday will be missing quite a few skill position players on offense. Alvin Kamara will not play. Eric McCoy, the center, who went out in the second quarter on Monday night, he's expected not to play. You had Spencer Rattler on Monday. He went 15. Well, he completed 15 passes on to 7 different receivers on offense. He had 153 yards passing, and he also carried the ball 5 times for 25 yards. He was the leading passer and rusher in Monday night's game. That's part of the reason why that game turned out the way that it did. But I digress. You know, this was a game that kind of had a highlight on when the schedule came out at the beginning of the season, because of the outside factors, I guess you could say. You know, Derek Carr playing his former team, Dennis Allen coaching against the team that fired him, and all this here. Well, those two elements won't be a part of this game. You know, Dennis Allen got fired a few weeks back, and you have Derek Carr, who is doubtful for Sunday's matchup against the Raiders. And also around this time, or at least at the beginning of the season when this popped up on the schedule, you thought that maybe the Saints would be in contention for something, whether it be playoffs or the division, something. And no, right now they're only in contention for a top 10 pick. And so, are we in full tank mode? You know what I'm saying? Are we just gonna torpedo these next 2 games of the season, or are we gonna try to finish strong with some pride or whatever? I'm of 2 minds of the situation. Of course, I would love to have a top 10 pick, but I still say that I'm not a big fan of Mickey Loomis in his decision making, let alone a top 10 pick. And so, even if we get a first overall pick, I'm not happy, because I'm not confident that Mickey Loomis will make the right decision. I could be wrong. but history dictates otherwise. So I'm not happy about that at all. But to be completely honest with you, the New Orleans Saints should have the frame of mind of maybe getting a high pick for the simple fact of trading down and stockpiling picks, because the New Orleans Saints have so many problems that need to be addressed. And I mean, immediately. You still have a problem at quarterback. You still have problems on the offensive line. You have problems on the defensive line. You have problems in the linebacking core. You have problems in the secondary. There's problems everywhere. There's one I left out, wide receiver. We have an issue there. We have a serious issue there. And so Saints need to address every facet of their team. And not all of them can be addressed during the draft because you only have 7 picks in the draft. And the Saints have more than 7 problems. So you have free agency. Well, the problem with the free agency, the Saints are 68? I think I read somewhere. The numbers are up and down, but we know is hovering around that number, 68 over the cap. And so there's not much you can do. Yeah, we all know Mickey Loomis always pulls a rabbit out the hat when it comes to the cap, kicking the can down the road and whatnot. But that needs to stop. That needs to stop because you keep kicking. You kicked up against a wall now. There's nowhere else you can kick that can. This is why we're in the situation that we're in. We need to stop. And that brings me to the coaching aspect. Our new coach, whoever that may be. I know a lot of insiders in whether it's ESPN or Fox Sports or even the NFL Network are linking Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, linking him to our head coaching spot. That's a good choice. Now, let's not forget he has ties here. He was a part of the coaching staff for the New Orleans Saints under Dennis. Not Dennis. Well, he for a second. No. He left when Sean Payton left. But actually, he left when Dan Campbell left, who was also a part of the Saints coaching staff. But he went over to Detroit with Dan Campbell to take over the defense, and the defense has looked great under his leadership. The problem I have is I would like to have somebody like an Aaron Glenn under different circumstances, but the defensive aspect ain't the problem. We need somebody here, offensive-minded coach who's going to take over this team, who can develop our offensive players, because there's no developing happen here on defense either, to be honest with you. Nobody is being developed. If whatever you was drafted at, let's play Madden ratings here for a second. If you had a Madden rating being brought into the New Orleans Saints of 87, if you here for 4 or 5 years and you leave, when you leave, you still gonna be an 87. There's no elevation at all, and that's the sad part. Whereas we see players leave here as an 87, go somewhere else, a la Zach Braun, and become a 95 or a 96. Trey Henderson, who's currently leading the league in sacks. He couldn't even get on the field here in New Orleans. It's stuff like that. We don't develop players. But I don't know what to say about our head coaching thing. We'll jump into that in a couple of weeks when we give our season review. But the new head coach will have to come in with the understanding that you're in for a job. This would not be a come in and like a Dan Quinn is doing in Washington right now. Got that team his first year turned around in the playoffs and looking dominant and look like a actual force to make some noise in the playoffs. So you're not going to have that here. because there's a lot of holes to fill here. And the Saints fan base, the Who Dat Nation, is going to have to be understanding as well. It's going to be like a 3-year process here if they do it right. But I'm not confident they will. Let's get back into this game against the Raiders for Sunday. Let's go over the rankings. The rankings of both teams so far this season. The Saints are 5-10. The Raiders are 3-12. Scoring average, the Saints are ranked 33rd in the league. And I know what you're saying. There's only 32 teams in the league. I know. The Raiders are ranked 29th. Opponent scoring average, Saints are ranked 16th. Raiders 27th. Total offense, Saints are ranked 18th. Raiders 28th. Rushing offense, Saints are ranked 13th. The Raiders dead last at 32nd. Passing offense, Saints are ranked 26th in the league to the Raiders 14th ranked. Total defense, Saints 30th. Raiders 12th. Rushing defense, Saints 30th. Raiders 13th. Passing defense, Saints are 28th. The Raiders are 9th. Turnover margin for the first time this season, the Saints are negative. They are -1 in turnovers. They're ranked 16th in the league, but it's a far cry from the Raiders, who are a -17 turnovers. They are ranked 31st in the league. Stats on both teams. The New Orleans Saints leading passer is Derek Carr. 189 completions on 279 attempts, 2,145 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. For the Raiders is Garner Minshew with 203 completions off of 306 attempts, 2,013 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Leading rushers for both teams, of course, we know is Alvin Kamara for the Saints with 228 carries, 950 yards, and 6 touchdowns. For the Raiders, Alexander Mattison, he has 116 carries, 338 yards rushing, and 4 touchdowns. Leading receiver for both teams, Saints, Alvin Kamara is still the leader in that category as well. 68 receptions, 543 yards, and 2 touchdowns. For the Raiders, it's their tight end, Brock Bowers, 101 receptions, 1,067 yards receiving, and 4 touchdowns. Our injury report going into Sunday's game against the Raiders, our questionables for Sunday's game, Nathan Shepard, Peyton Turner, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Chris Olave, and Rico Payton are all questionable for Sunday's matchup. Those who have been ruled out of the game against the Raiders, Lucas Patrick, Eric McCoy, Chris Olave is ruled out, and Alvin Kamara, as well as Derek Carr, has been ruled out of Sunday's game. I know Derek Carr is probably crying in a corner right now because I know he wanted nothing better than to play against the Oakland Raiders. And if you know Derek Carr and his relationship with the Raiders, this was the game. And the fact that he can't play in this game, I know is killing him. And if it makes him feel better, it kills me when he gets in on the field any other Sunday. So it is what it is. Nice little trade-off, in my humble opinion. Keys to victory for Sunday's matchup against the Raiders. Look, man, the Saints should win this game hands down, but I don't know. I know one thing. One of the keys to victory, if we're going to pull this off, we have to protect the ball. We have to protect our quarterback. Rookie quarterback Spencer Rattler. He gets his 5th start of the season going against the Raiders, and I guess the mission doesn't change for him. What we saw last week or Monday earlier this week against the Packers. That was sad. I did not like that game plan going in. They put way too much pressure on Spencer Rattler. He threw the ball way too much. And I think they should have ran it more. They did not run the ball effectively enough, in my humble opinion. Then you had the offensive line. Now, granted, you lost, I think, 2 players on that offensive line throughout the course of the game, but yet and still, I mean, you got to protect the quarterback. You really do. They got to do a better job of keeping Spencer Rattler clean throughout this game, because Raiders, even though they're 3-12, they have a pretty good defense. They have a decent defense. Antonio Pierce, their head coach, defensive guy, he has the defense playing. The problem is nobody else is playing on that team. And now on that offensive line, if you just heard the injury report, you would be without Eric McCoy. You would be without Lucas Patrick. So it's going to be even tougher. And some of Rattler's decision making, that has to clean up as well. He's not beyond reproach here. He needs to do a better job as well, And I know a lot of that was compromised due to the lack of protection, but some of the decisions weren't keen. He looked like a rookie, and there were growing pains in that game. But man, you can't miss your shot like that. Not on national television. It looked really, really bad. Now the Raiders are in the bottom 10 in the league with 33 sacks. But like I said, don't sleep on that defense. And as always, how do you protect your quarterback? How do you play ball control? Offense, run the ball. Your ground game. Rattler will benefit greatly with a better running game. Yes, I know we don't have Alvin Kamara. I get it. But we have to run the ball. I think on Monday, the Saints only had like 67 yards rushing. That is unacceptable. That's unacceptable in any team. You have to run and it wasn't from with all due respect, it wasn't from Green Bay's great stout run defense. That wasn't the case. We just didn't run the ball. And one of the few things the Raiders have done well this season is stop the run. They have a good run defense. They only allowed 117 yards per game on average. So they're a pretty good run team, but keep them honest. Yes, Alvin Kamara won't be back on the field, but Kendre Miller, who looks really good in a couple of games he's been back, Jamal Williams, Jordan Mims, you still have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Yeah, so I mean, let's use them. I mean, what you brought in? Can someone answer that question? Why did they sign Clyde Edwards-Helaire with 2 games left in the season, and you're not going to play him? It's stuff like this that makes me want to just throw something at my TV every Sunday when it comes to this team. Defensively, Saints need to handle their business. They need to really set the tone. It's their job. It's going to be their job to set the tone. Take away this run game. Offensively, the Raiders are a 3-12 team. Defensively, not so much. They're not great, but they're a pretty decent defense. Offensively, they are what their record says they are. They only average, I think, 75 yards per game running the ball. Pretty much what we did Monday night. That's them every day, every week, I should say. And so, by far, is the fewest in the league. They just don't run the ball. And so take that element away. Make it an airtight game. Secondary is going to be on you to lock up these receivers that they don't have. Their leading receiver is their tight end. That tells you everything you need to know. And so they have to handle their business defensively, maybe generate a couple of turnovers, make this a one-dimensional game. The Saints should win this game. There's nothing else to say. Even with the Saints looking as horrible as they are, playing like a 5-10 team, the Saints should bounce back, have some pride in them, and give us a win. Give us a win to close out the year. Give us this win. I would appreciate it. I really would. I'm not sweating the draft position. That doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I think a lot of people are fixated on that, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Let's win this game. Next week is next week. Well, I'm not even I'm not even thinking about that right now. But let's get the bad taste of the Monday night game out of our mouth. If the Monday night game wouldn't have went the way it went, had it been like a one possession loss or something like that, I wouldn't have cared. But that was a disgusting display that we saw. And so let's wash the taste out of all of our mouths with a decided victory here against the Raiders this Sunday in the Dome. But I would love to know your thoughts. What do you think the outcome of this Sunday's game against the Las Vegas Raiders will be? And do you think the Saints should just pack it in and lose out, or try to finish strong? Win these last two games, because we talk that talk, but honestly, do you want to lose against Tampa? I don't care about the the draft order. I don't want to lose against Tampa. I want to beat Tampa. We owe them. The people put up 51 points on us last time we met. No, I don't. No, and I don't want to get swept by them. No. But that's just me. But I want to know your thoughts. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. Subscribe and like this video on YouTube. Just look up the KB Radio Network. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Dome Patrol podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this preview of the Week 17 matchup between the New Orleans Saints and the Las Vegas Raiders. Can't wait to speak to you after the game when we recap and react to the Saints' victory over the Raiders. Look for that Sunday afternoon. Until then, I'm going to be screaming, "Who dat?"